Hi guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to show you how to install titanium intake and exhaust studs. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can start making more videos like this. Please make sure to drop us a comment below if you like this video, and let's move on. So today we're going to be using our development B-series engine that we've got over there. Whether you're trying to do intake or exhaust side doesn't matter, the process is exactly the same for both. So titanium nowadays is a great replacement for OEM studs. They're more corrosion resistant than steel, 45% lighter generally and much stronger, so they've become massively popular over the years. The ones we sell are actually grade 5 titanium, so they're a great option for intake and exhaust studs. One of the biggest advantages though of using titanium intake or exhaust studs is the fact that these are actually elongated over stock. So if you're using thicker thermal gaskets, or if you've got like turbo manifolds, exhaust flanges, or thicker intake flanges, a lot of the time the OEM one isn't going to do it, and they're a little bit too short. So these being probably like 10 to 15 mil longer are generally a good option for that. Right, let's move on to all the tools that we're going to need for the job. So you're going to need a few tools before starting the job. Make sure to gather all of these before you start the installation. The spanners or sockets that you're going to use here will mainly depend on how much room you have to play with. Sometimes the spanners are much easier to get into the small gaps and sockets, vice versa. So the list of tools you're going to need are the titanium intake and exhaust studs. This kit will also come with titanium nuts as well, as you can see. You're going to want a 12mm spanner, ratchet, 12mm socket, 3mm Allen key head for the end of the titanium studs, and anti-seize grease. Right, now you know all the tools you need, let's move on to installing the titanium intake studs. First, you want to remove the old intake or exhaust manifold. Do this by removing anything attached to it, such as vacuum lines, wiring, or anything else that prevents the manifold from being removed from the engine. Make sure you either label or remember where everything goes for when you install this back onto the engine later on. Once you've removed everything from the manifold, loosen the nuts or bolts holding it to the cylinder head. Once these are all removed, you should be able to remove the manifold from the engine and put it aside for later use. If your old gasket is damaged or worn, we recommend replacing it. OEM Honda intake manifold gaskets will likely break off in pieces, so you'll have to replace them regardless. You should now be left with only studs sticking out of the cylinder head, but these need to be removed to go to the next step. The best way to do this would be to use a stud extractor, which you can pick up pretty cheaply at a hardware store, but we normally use the method of tightening two nuts together to remove the stud from the head. Start by threading both nuts onto the stud you want to remove facing opposite directions so the flat faces are touching. Get it to a good enough point where you have enough leverage to move the stud and tighten them together as much as you can. Now start undoing the outward facing nut sharply. This should be enough to break the seal of the stud and it will start to come loose. You can remove the stud until it's loose enough to thread up by hand, then undo the two lock nuts to remove them. If you're struggling to remove the stud at this point, the nuts are likely not tight enough to break the seal of the stud into the block. Soak them in WD-40, retighten the nuts and repeat the process until the studs start moving. You can repeat this step for every stud you need to remove and move on to the next step. Now the studs are removed, we can start installing the new titanium intake and exhaust studs. Start by using a small amount of anti-seize compound on the base part of the stud that will sit in the cylinder head. We always recommend to use anti-seize compound or grease when installing titanium into aluminium cylinder heads to reduce the chance of galling over time. When you can't thread it in any further by hand, use the 3mm hex tip socket or Allen key to thread the titanium stud the rest of the way. Our titanium intake and exhaust studs have a shoulder midway down the stud, so you can't tighten them too far into the head. Once this is bottomed out, you're all done, you can repeat the step for the rest of the studs. Once you've done this, torque all of the titanium studs to a maximum of 20 Nm or 22 foot-pounds, and you can start installing the intake or exhaust manifold. Clean the cylinder head's surface face and install the new gasket before installing the new manifold. Thread on all of the M8 titanium nuts by hand, then tighten them using a 12mm socket, spanner, or a combination of both. Now the final step, you want to torque all of the nuts to the factory specification of your engine and then reinstall everything onto the exhaust or intake manifold that you removed earlier. Make sure to do this in the reverse order of how you took it off in the first place. Once you're all done and you've installed everything back to the intake manifold, test the car for leaks by running the engine. Make sure to retorque the nuts after a few heat cycles. This is important as the metal will expand and contract over time, so you want to always recheck the torque. You are now all done with the installation and you should have some nice new shiny hardware to show off. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video or if it was helpful at all, and we'll catch you on the next one.